All right, welcome back to Social Distillation, the submarine still of the internet, where we attempt to drop the beat and pull white lightning straight onto your brain. What do we talk about today, Sebo?
It's going to be an interesting one because we're only doing one episode this week. Obviously, you haven't seen another one posted, and we're kind of crossing the stream. So we'll talk actually some fiction, some wheel time stuff, but it's relevant to the other topics. We're going to talk about some gender stuff. I've got my DSM 5 TR handy because we're going to go
Mhm.
over mental health and stuff around those things. But there's a lot freaking going on in the world right now.
Yeah, and um, well, I wasn't going to go into that. There's a lot going on in the world right now, but it's funny that you just teed me up on that because
I
I
throw a
don't I
softball every once in a while.
I don't want to get into what's going on with Orion right now, but I will say it is very interesting watching the reaction to Pete Hegseth, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, and the way he handles himself. Marco Rubio is the same way. He has been, I don't even remember what it was, but they were trying to get him in a, find people on both sides, which is a complete lie. Still, they were trying to get him in one of those moments, and he just shut him down. And just pointed straight at the guy and said, "That's a lie. You're lying. No, let me stop you right there." And it's
Rubio has been the most impressive hire in the cabinet, I think. I love what's
yes,
happening in
yes,
the health secretary area, but I didn't
yeah.
I didn't have confidence in him, and when I heard that name, I was like, "Oh my gosh, they're just making the people happy on
he's
that
a
side of the
he's a
aisle."
swamp creature. He's a
Yeah.
conventional idiot. No, he
But
has
you
been
know, yeah, and I actually looked up some of his
good.
stuff in Florida, some of his record in Florida, and I was like, "Guy's kind of progressive for a conservative." You know,
Yeah,
they're like, oh, only a 20-week abortion ban. I'm like, only a 20-week? That's like right where I would stand, and I'm considered the freaking progressive in that arena. We've
yeah,
had our debates
yeah.
on here. If
That,
you
that's our
want,
biggest point of contention. Yeah, but
yeah.
no, the point so with talking about Stranger Things, and we've used um played some clips from Hillary Lane, her channel Second Story, bashing the girl boss and strong female characters, and we wanted to take some time to bash guys and point out the problems there. But on the flip side, on the plus side, is very interesting when you have had, as we've talked about with Helen Andrews, the Great Feminization Theory essay that she wrote, that has been going on for so long that suddenly when you have actual masculinity, it freaks people the heck out.
Hmm.
And I don't mean it just because, and that's why I use you look at Marco Rubio and you think, oh, well, he's not a manly man. And then you have Pete Hegseth, who's out there doing PT with the guys still, former Green Beret, has a very lengthy service history and all that. But I mean, a year or more ago, when was it when Douglas Murray was on Rogan and we
Oh, with Dave Smith, the
with
debate.
Dave Smith, yeah, and we
Yeah, that was about a year. Yeah.
and I pointed out, there you go. Here you have a soft-spoken, erudite, intellectual, homosexual British man, and that was one of the more profound displays of masculinity I had seen in a while, simply because he stood his post. He stood his ground.
I will never call him soft-spoken. Every time I've seen him, he's
His way
well-spoken.
of speaking
He's
is,
well-spoken, but
yeah,
he's
he's
proper.
not going to get emotional when he speaks, but
Hmm.
he's not going to be like a stereotypical Southern Baptist preacher, you know, but he is going to give you that hard line just in a somewhat soft spoken manner. And that's why I
Let
use
me
those
pause this
different
real
examples.
quick.
Okay, and this actually relates to what we were talking about before we started recording, about the idea of you have your general, and then you start narrowing it down to the individual. There is a general idea of masculinity, but how that is going to manifest is going to be different based on the individual.
Hmm.
And that's why I
That's why I miss
use
the
three
days
different kinds of
of the doctor
examples.
coming to your house, right? Because they
That's a good
would
point.
see the environment you were in, they would see you, they would spend time because you're not going to go out there, you're not going to drive somewhere for a 5 minute visit, you know.
Yeah.
And I mean, the guy who stopped the cholera epidemic in in Britain
That's a good point.
is because he went to the house and he was like, kind of smells like shit in here.
Exactly. That is one of the great stories of history
Mhm.
of
Well,
how that happened.
sort of. He fed
Well,
his research assistant poop.
there's some dark elements there, yes, yes,
Yeah.
but
And his
it is
wife
very fascinating.
and
Yeah,
theoretically himself too. So
yeah, but it is definitely a very fascinating story.
but it's
Um,
it's because you can't get to the level of the individual unless you know that much about them.
right.
And we had a population problem, which was cholera in London. And it turned out because the sewage lines were crossing with the water lines that they were getting the water they
Yep,
washed and drank and everything in. And it realistically just took a doctor going out there going, smells like poop.
yep, yep. Absolutely smells like poop around here. There's a lot of that going on,
Hmm.
and um, and the reason that's important and why we spend so much time talking about fiction is because if you don't have those different examples, we like the Wheel of Time. We use the Wheel of Time. You've got when it comes to mentor characters, you've got the stoic loner of Elias. You've got the giant badass warrior Lan. You have got the
Yeah,
quiet
Catsuan. Yeah.
farmer in Tam.
Yep.
You have all these different kinds of masculinity, but they're all pointed to the same goal, which is that protective nature of the male.
Hmm.
Um,
Well, and even some of the learning curves is, well, I'll bring up Perrin since he's one of your favorites. What we call the slog is because he lost sight of the ultimate goal.
mm.
He lost sight of saving the world because of his interest. And that's, I think, one of the reasons we call it the slog.
Well, and the I think and we said when we were doing our reread at the time that the point of he says it pretty plainly. Jordan says it pretty plainly because Perrin says, "I would have been willing to let the world burn for you." That's not a good thing.
Yeah. And we got on the opposite, everybody gives Matt a hard time for being the philanderer and everything. But as much as he bitched and moaned, he always went in the right direction.
Exactly. That's why
Even when he didn't want to go that way.
to that for me the if I just had to pick one thing out to say who is Matt as a person, as a character, it is the chapter from Dragon Reborn, Hero in the Dark, where he goes
The best book
jumping.
of the series is
Yeah,
Dragon
he
Reborn.
goes
Yeah.
jumping off from the hayloft, all the while cursing himself in his own head about what a moron he is, but he's still doing it.
But that's also the book you get the speech from Swan about her uncle.
Mm-hmm.
That is,
Mm-hmm.
you remind me of my uncle who ran into a burning building, pulling people out because it was the right thing to do, and that's how
Died because he wouldn't
yeah.
stop going back in, even when people told him, no, it's too dangerous.
And for young writers out there, that's good writing because Jordan
Mm-hmm.
had those two scenes in that book for a reason. It's
Yeah.
one person saying, "You remind me of this," and then actually him doing it. And
Mm-hmm.
and realistically, yeah, we get the stuff later with the basically inventing cannons, but we get that stuff later with that same character he saved, but it was very abstract. He didn't know
Yep.
her. He didn't
At
know her
all.
at
Yeah.
all.
Um, when you don't have that, when you look at um but you know what, let's take the clip that I'm shocked we didn't get copyright struck because it was a pretty long clip from Malcolm in the Middle that we
Hmm.
played of the dad and the great Bride Cranston, and he's a little bit buffoonish, but he's still a dad. It's a sitcom, it's a comedy, so he's going to be funny, but he isn't the butt of every joke. He's not a moron. Okay, he is
Hmm.
sometimes moronic, but he's also a good dad and a good father. Okay, it's hard to find that anymore, where you can be, where you can have a character that is self-deprecating but also still good.
Well, we saw it in action because we talked about Stranger Things, and they did that with Hopper.
Yeah.
Hopper was a masculine man who was trying to save the day, do the best he could. Then season three came and they made him the buffoon.
Hmm.
And then I'm hoping it's because they realized that people didn't like it. And then season four comes around and he's back to the way he was in seasons one and two, right? So yeah, but season three he was a complete buffoon. They tried to make him the comic relief, and it was the it was season three wasn't horrible except for that, and it ruined the
Hmm.
whole thing.
Yeah. And why does this matter? Well, we've, like we said, we've spent plenty of time bashing the toxic feminine. So if you don't have those quality proper examples, then this is where it leads you. And I don't remember if I said this while we were still recording or if it was after, but looks maxing is this bizarre, to me, to anyone sane, trend that is, it has been growing in social media
Mm.
recently. And
This
so
is this is new to me, even though I do read
mhm.
Healthline every once in a while.
So
Yeah.
this is from the website healthline.com, and the headline is, what is looks maxing? How the viral trend promotes toxic beauty standards for young men. And here are
I
the
mean, we grew
highlights.
up with He-Man. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Um,
He-Man was the male version of Barbie,
put
the
put
thing
a
you couldn't be.
put a pin in that because I want
Okay.
to circle back to that about why that matters. Because it's the Looney Tunes example. So looks maxing, a social media driven trend encouraging men to aggressively, quote unquote, optimize their appearance, is gaining popularity. It's related to similar appearance based trends like soft maxing and hard maxing. What the heck is that? I don't know.
I don't even know what that
While
is. Yeah.
often framed as self
You know
improvement,
what? I'm gonna guess. I'm gonna guess the soft
yeah.
maxing is your sneaky fuckers, and your hard maxing is your what they call Sigma male.
Oh.
The Christian Bale in American Psycho
Hmm.
is the hard max, where the sneaky fucker is the guy who's so feminine that he can get
Mm-hmm.
into your circle. You know that that's
The
the
guy
soft max. Yeah,
who's trying to pretend to be the gay best friend, but he's not actually gay. He just wants to get in your pants.
exactly. Yeah.
Mm. Um, Experts, which you're about to be one of those, you're studying to be one of those. So let's see what you say. Experts warn these trends can fuel body dysmorphia, anxiety, eating disorders, and even self harm.
Mhm.
Young men may be particularly vulnerable due to several factors, including online messaging about masculinity and worth. And I'll pause there because that's not offensive. That's not a problem. That's true because we say the same thing and have been saying the same thing about girls and young women and what social media and the online
Mhm.
sphere does to their neuroticism, which they're already predisposed to, and has done to anxiety levels.
Mhm.
And you look at prescription levels, you
Well, I
know?
mean, criteria A is preoccupation with one or more perceived deficits or flaws in physical appearance that are not
Mhm.
observable or appear slight to other people.
Yep. And what you've got there is what now? Remind everyone what you're reading from.
The DSM-5 TR, which is the newest version of the diagnostic manual for evaluating mental illness. So,
Mm-hmm. And
and it is the most recent updated one. So,
and so here's where why I spent time in the preamble talking about the different kinds of masculinity or the different um applications or manifestations of masculinity because of this sentence right here at the top, which is the trend focuses on pursuing the quote ideal face and body. Well, but ideal to who? What?
exactly. I mean, if I told you I found somebody attractive, you might go, meh. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, and actually, a guy, you know, if we were in the mating pool together, I would be like, I'm glad he's not attracted to her because now she's all mine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so a what do these letters mean? Well, I know what MA means, but what is LPC? Um, Jason.
Licensed practicing clinician.
Okay. That name set rings a bell. Has he been on Modern Wisdom or maybe someone with a similar name? Jason Firestein, MA LPC, founder of Phoenix Men's Counseling, said these trends are toxic and harmful. Quote, young men fall into this false sense of acceptance and what they believe women want from them, he told Healthline. They can get caught up in potentially lifelong struggles with feeling inadequate and handling that inadequacy. He further described looks maxing as a quote social media driven body dysmorphia trend. And that's what you've got open there in the DSM is the criteria for diagnosing body dysmorphia, correct?
That is correct.
Um, People will focus their energies on improving their physique based on feelings of inferiority or inadequacy, Firestein said, which,
Wait. Pin, because
yep.
criteria B. At some point during the course of the disorder, the individual has performed repetitive behaviors, example, mirror checking, excessive grooming, or mental acts in response to the appearance concerned. So exactly what you were just reading right there. So again, marrying this article to the actual diagnostic manual.
Uh, Continuing on for the article, what Firestein says, men can get caught in a cycle of trying to optimize their looks, but as mental health clinicians, we know that if you're feeling inadequate or inferior, those are the issues to work on with a qualified therapist. So this is essentially, I would say that this is the male equivalent of don't get your mental health advice from Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get your mental health advice from a gym bro.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I
That's
was going to bring up bodybuilding as my
that is
example.
I
Yeah,
think a lot of what is happening here
yes.
is kind of that same idea of when we criticize girls and young women for the the memes and the you go girl, you find yourself, blah 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 blah, all that self-affirmation nonsense and the downsides it has to it. Well, on the male side, if instinctually you should be and you want to be strong, but you don't know why, let alone how to do it properly, which is what the Real Fitness channel is all about, uh, you're going to go down some weird paths if you don't have someone to guide you.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, one of the reasons we come on this is because the the affirmative care that's given in the gender debate, it would be like giving a bodybuilder steroids or cutting off an anorexic person from eating. Because those are other forms of body dysmorphia. Is
Mm-hmm.
with the saying in the gym that you said, the gym bro advice, the saying is once you start lifting, you're never big enough. And what we have Arnold, we have Ronnie Coleman, we have all of these figures that are
Lou
just
Ferrigno, the
massive.
literal Hulk.
Yeah, the literal Hulk, yeah, yeah. And the thing is they weren't there naturally and they weren't healthy in that process.
No.
Now, the older school ones a little healthier than the ones now, but it is not uncommon for a modern bodybuilder to die in their 30s.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
they in self-surveys, they have specifically said that's okay.
Yeah, and I'm actually about to get there because I found this out because some people were sharing something really weird that made me go, what? And so I'm going to read this last bit from this article, and then I'm going to switch to something else to show a specific example of how this goes so horribly wrong. What are the differences between the looks maxing, soft maxing, and hard maxing trends? While the terminology differs, the trends all have one thing in common: the desire to obsessively change one's appearance.
Hmm.
Quote, looks maxing is essentially self improvement put on overdrive. It's reframing the male physique as something to be engineered, Firestein explained. While softmaxing involves subtler changes to one's appearance, often achieved through grooming and lifestyle adjustments, hardmaxing is more extreme. Quote, it involves serious methods to change your looks, such as nose jobs, Botox, hair transplants, and
Okay,
chin
so he does
surgery.
explain what soft and hard
Yeah.
maxing is. Okay, so it's actually doing something physically. So like software versus the computer itself.
Hmm.
So one is the actual equipment in the computer, which would be hard maxing, the hardware,
Hmm.
and software is the programs that are downloaded into it. So okay, so I was wrong, and that explains it right there. Yeah.
Back to the Firestein quote. The obvious issue with this is that once you open that Pandora's box, it's hard to close the lid. Christine Ruperti Bruning, MA, ATR, BC, DSLPC, whatever all that means. Um, Licensed therapist and certified eating disorder specialist summed up the differences. There's nothing wrong with wanting to look good, and caring for your appearance can build confidence and be gender affirming. But the big difference is that looks maxing is rooted in self hate and trying to fit in at the cost of your health and safety. Hard maxing, meanwhile, seems to be dipping its toe into self harm territory, especially some of its associated trends, like smashing your face with a hammer. Because what they're trying to do is they're trying to get the cheekbones
Mm,
to look like basically classic Roman statue, is what they're
hmm.
going for. And I found this because a bunch of people a little while ago were sharing about this guy, and I was like, who is this person I have never heard of? Okay, and so now I'm hopping over to the Guardian, and a an article titled "The Disturbing Rise of Clavicular: How a Looks Maxer Turned His Horror Story into Fame." Okay.
The face looks familiar. I'm thinking he's the guy that has all the like one-liners.
Mm-hmm.
Like someone would be quote unquote interviewing him, and they're like, "Oh, well, what do you say about this?" And he'll have a one-liner, and I'm like, "This was not natural. This isn't just on the street, you know?"
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of that. Before taking up with what some feel are among the worst men alive, Clavicular was known only as a looksmaxer, a young man intent on optimizing his physical attractiveness by frequently extreme measures such as steroids, surgery, and taking a hammer to his jaw. Yet Clavicular's gonzo live streams and absurd lingo have seen him escape his subcultural silo, landing him a modeling gig at New York Fashion Week and a profile in the New York Times. So where has he come from, and what does his rise mean for humanity? Well, I think you're a little extreme here, honey, but it is a problem for young men, which we'll get into in a second.
Hmm. Oh no, no, I come across those reels, and I'm like, he's he
Mhm.
he. It sounds like he's spitting facts, you know?
Yes,
It,
it is. What did we? I don't think we played the clip. I think I just mentioned it. Is the great line for somebody asked Jimmy Carr, one of my favorite comedians, "What do you think about Andrew Tate?" And he said he's a 13-year-old's idea of what a man is.
Mm,
And I was like, that is nail on head, right there. And that is essentially what these people are doing is they're taking the Tate sphere and they're globbing onto it, they're grifting off of it, and they're cranking it up to 11. Where was the okay? Peters is real name came to prominence last year on the streaming platform Kick, where he now has nearly 180,000 followers. That's dwarfed by his audience on TikTok, which at time of this writing is more than 760,000. Clavicular's niche is looks maxing, a practice of physical self optimization increasingly popular among young men. His screen name refers to the collarbone, which is prized within that online community. Odd, but okay. Having achieved a disquieting transformation himself, Peters first gained a following for posting about the process behind his hard won face and physique and the rewards he has allegedly reaped with women. For a fee, Peters will also coach individuals on how to ascend, as he puts it, and become more handsome themselves. Though lately his focus has shifted from looks maxing specific content to streaming great stretches of his day-to-day life. Peters earned more than £100,000 or $100,000 from Kick last month alone. His most recent upload to the platform, blah 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 blah. Okay, This is the
Okay,
this is the
yeah,
real part.
yeah. I
This
remember one of his
this
quotes.
is
So tell me when you're done.
this paragraph right here is what I wanted to get to because this is the very personal, very real. You brought up Ronnie Coleman earlier, and we have talked about the documentary, The King Ronnie Coleman. The guy can't walk.
Hmm.
Okay, I mean he is a shell of the man he was, and yet he doesn't care. He wouldn't go back and change a thing. Peters is notorious for the extreme lengths by which he claims to have achieved his chiseled appearance. By his own account, he is infertile as a result of years of steroid abuse and uses methamphetamine to suppress his appetite. Years.
And that's actually typical bodybuilder behavior too, because they use stimulants to cut.
According to the New York Times, Peters began looks maxing at 14, ordering testosterone and fat dissolvers on the internet and refining his vision by altering pictures of himself using Photoshop. He's only 20 years old and he has made himself infertile because he started using steroids and testosterone at 14 years old.
Whew.
You don't go there unless you are messed up.
Hmm.
You are already messed up in the
Well,
head, and so you start down this dark road and it never occurs you to get off.
and there's a key to that because in his job title, in air quotes, there is influencer.
Mm-hmm.
So this person has done this bad thing for their own health, but he influences millions of people.
Yeah.
Influencer is that is a key word. I remember one of his quotes, uh, and it's like it was. I think someone asked him what does nobody tell a man, and his quote to come out of it was, "The first time they'll get flowers is at their funeral." And if you're scrolling through Instagram at 2 in the morning and you just got out of a breakup and your girlfriend was not being really cool or whatever, and you're going through that, that's gonna hit you like crazy. And it's like that, the problem is he's semi-right.
Yeah.
There's an element of truth to that. And but it sounds like just complete wisdom from a 20-year-old who's wrecked his body.
That was my first thought when you said somebody asked him what is something nobody tells a man. It's like he's 20 years old. How would he know?
Hmm.
He hasn't had
If
enough
it's the same
time.
guy, I think that's the same face, but yeah.
Um, or no, this is the American Heritage Dictionary. Sophistry, one of my favorite words.
Mm,
Plausible but fallacious argumentation.
hmm.
So here's where this is all sophistry because that quote there is well, okay, yeah, that sounds right, and what that's appealing to is something. I think you talked about this when we were ranting about Stranger Things last time or the time before about gratitude.
Hmm.
That
Yeah.
you really want to make a man feel good, just show him a little gratitude. And it doesn't have to we don't really care about flowers. We don't, that's not our thing. I mean, we like to grow vegetables, so you can give me a pepper plant I can plant, but you know, that's not our thing. But the point is, where's the gratitude before we fricking die? So
Hmm.
that's what he's tapping into, but it's all very surface level. There
Hmm.
is no depth to it in the same way that what what these people in this subculture are grifting off of is and not without reason. It goes back to when we brought up Dr. K
Mm.
on Modern Wisdom and I just brain farted on his name. Who's the host of Modern Wisdom?
Chris
Williamson.
Williamson.
Chris Williamson asked him, "Well, what do you think about Andrew Tate?" And he said, "Well, I don't want to comment on someone I haven't met, so I don't want to talk about him in particular. But what I will say about this movement and about this moment is, why isn't anyone asking these boys and young men, well, what is it you like about this guy?" And then you will find out inevitably that what they like is the instinctual appeal to at least surface level masculinity. So things like, hey, get off your butt, get to the gym and lift some heavy weights. No, you don't need to go for a jog. You don't, just don't go marathon running. No, go do some freaking deadlifts. Get some muscle, be strong, be able to handle yourself, go join a jujitsu gym or something, that kind of thing. There have been lots of people, even Peterson has been, hey, get off your butt, put down the game controller, go get some exercise, be strong, be healthy. Okay, but why? And Peterson and people like him, people who actually have depth, will say, so that you can be the person you need to be, so that
Hmm.
you can be the person others want you to be, expect you to be. And
Hmm.
then he goes into detail of what does that mean. People like this never go into the what does that mean. It is all the swipe left, swipe right culture of, I mean, from that Guardian article, he mutilated himself by taking pictures of his own pictures, going into Photoshop and tweaking. This is how I need to look.
Hmm.
And then he started going to greater and greater extremes to make himself look an like something fake. And we'll circle back to, you brought up He-Man versus Barbie, and there's a great meme on that.
Well,
But
this is where culture comes in because you
exactly.
notice there was two extremes to that, soft maxing and hard maxing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we've got this culture of masculinity is toxic.
Mm-hmm.
And so the people who are not very masculine are going to push to the extreme of making that cultural shift happy. The problem is dating apps say you need 666. You need to be 6 foot tall, six figures, and 6 inches, and
Bare minimum.
bare minimum. And so there's going to be the other shift in the other direction. The problem is that's when you get I still don't like the term, but that's where you get the toxic masculinity because if you're the person that shows up in the filters, you have no incentive to change.
Mm-hmm.
Because you could be like, this chick's kind of boring today and get on Hinge and have another date that night
Mm-hmm.
because you're in that 5% or whatever of the population. On the other end, you're sitting there basically enabling bad behavior in women, which is not good for men. Just like enabling bad behavior in men is not good for women.
Mm-hmm. and and it absolutely is toxic, because what is toxic? Well, it's um I like the example of salt, because you need it. Your
Hmm.
your body absolutely needs salt to survive. Um, and you add just the right amount, and it enhances the flavor of your food, and it's good. Too much, and it's inedible. Way too much, and it is literally poisonous. You can poison yourself by ingesting too much salt. It becomes toxic. This thing that is necessary, taken to an extreme, becomes toxic. It is necessary for you to be healthy, to take care of yourself, to have some amount of physical strength. But now we're going to take it to an extreme, because we don't have a grounding in what is proper, and we don't have any guides, whether personally, directly, in an actual father figure that is in your personal life, or even, as we ranted about in the beginning, why we talk about stories, it's hard to find a fictional example that you can look at.
Yeah, and this is where social site gets, kind of gets it right, is we want to belong. And especially as human beings, we want to belong to somebody of our preferred sexual tendency, right? Which almost every time is male female dynamics, right? And Hollywood and everything is telling us to be the softmax. Whereas we're seeing example after example after example after example of the hard max being the right thing. And so we want to be somebody's forever after, or somebody's right now at least. We want to be that. And you're going to pick a strategy. And both strategies are unhealthy, as you just pointed out, with this guy who busts his face with a hammer. It just I
So because essentially what they're trying to do is they're trying to make themselves look like a freaking meme. They're trying to make themselves look like the Giga Chad,
The Giga Chad, yeah.
which was created as a joke.
Yeah, it
Like
was
that's actually
created
what
as
they're
a
trying to
joke
do.
and research. I mean, a good source for this is Alexander Datesike. He's out of David Buss's lab in UT, and that's not the face people want. They want symmetry. They want markers of health. They want all of those things. One thing that men don't understand is you want some form of kind of indicators of paternity, like you would be gentle with a child.
Hmm.
And that actually is sexually selected for with females by the data, by the research. So, I mean, it makes sense, and the research backs it up. That's usually where I go. That's the right thing, right? It's biologically plausible, and it's playing out okay in society. But we have a culture where everything's manufactured. When you, one of the biggest people to hate in the recent days of the Wokeism is Noam Chomsky, but one of the greatest books ever written is Manufactured Consent. He tells you exactly how it's done. De Beers made you think that engagement rings have been around since the dawn of man, but they've
Hmm.
only been around since 1920
Hmm.
because they wanted to hire African cartels to protect diamonds that you can just walk and pick up off the ground and sell them to us for a lot of money.
Yup. Yup. And we were able to exist as a society, as a healthy, generally healthy society, despite that all of that for a very long time because I brought up Looney Tunes earlier. We had enough balance
Hmm.
to maintain a general level of mental and physical health. We watched Looney Tunes before school. We played Wolfenstein and Doom, but
Wolfenstein, yeah.
yeah, and yet we didn't go crazy. Why? Because we also literally got our butt paddled when we got out of line.
Yeah, well, and we also, even though we did play video games as they were coming out, because we were kind of like the dawning age of that,
Mm,
but we also still had personal
mm,
connection with people. I mean, think of an example if you're listening of someone that you heard just the worst things about. Everything about them you heard was negative, and you finally meet them in person, and you're like, actually, they were kind of cool. That wasn't that bad of a thing. But then
mhm.
also, this happens with celebrities a lot. Oh, the media, oh, they're so great, they're this, da, 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 and you meet them in person, and you're like, that's a shit person, and you get that vibe right off the bat.
Mhm.
We've all had those examples, but the way everything is set up, and just realistically, and I mean, that's why we drive so much in America, is we're distant from everything we love. I
Yeah.
don't just get out of my house and walk to a market and get, bread and cheese and everything and come back home. I have to get in my car, go to the store, see a whole bunch of people I don't know, get what I need, come back home, and then try to have some intimacy with it because food should be like more than just calories,
Sustenance. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we live in that world and it's throwing us off because we're not used to living in that world.
There's a great example of this in The Wheel of Time that I hadn't really considered until last week when we were ranting about Stranger Things, and I brought up Egwene and Gawain,
Mhm.
and Gawain in particular, and how he ends tragically. And I think it's because he never really finds himself in the true sense. He's trying to find himself in kind of the modern sense where it doesn't make any sense. And even in as I pointed out, even when he's dueling Demandred, and he makes a comment about that's unfair, you're cheating, and I'm like, dude, you're in a battle. This is
Well, we
literal
both we both
war.
studied under Master Abeleos, We
Yeah.
talked about scooping a person's eye out.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as a
It's
fair fight.
if you're generally in fear for your life, you do what it takes to win that fight.
Yeah, and then in another gym I trained in, they said you're either going to jail or the hospital.
Hmm.
I'd rather go to jail. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. And then hope it, try and work it out after the fact. But
yeah.
that is living in reality. That is hoping for the best, but it is living in reality. The reason Gawain is such a mess as a person, as a character, is because he doesn't really know who he is. He's he has all these ideas of who he wants to be and who he is expected to be. And to be fair, some of that's not on him.
It
You
was
know,
yeah,
it
it was definitely a lot of nurture. Yeah.
there was a lot of nurture there. Is one of the first things we know about him is that before he literally before he could do it and knew what the words meant, his toddler hand was placed on a sword hilt and someone spoke the words for him over his sister in her crib about how he was her protector and blah 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 and he's the you know the sword for the daughter heir and all this. And so it's not all him, but he never figured out how to be himself, how to find his manifestation of masculinity.
Yeah, and that's the balance that we're talking about. So masculinity in and of itself is creating the best environment in the system you're in. And if that's in the wild, you're hunting, you're doing this, da, da, da. If you're in, modern day United States, you're an accountant. It is creating the best environment for protection and procreation that you can provide. And I love everybody knows I love James Sexton. One of his quotes is tradition is pure pressure from dead people. And we saw that with Gawain, right? He
Yeah.
was the he was the sword of her because of the tradition that existed in that society. And we still have a lot of those. We still have a lot of those, and we have to guide ourselves. Sometimes tradition is great because tradition is time tested.
Hmm.
But sometimes tradition it shackles you because things are different. We got to figure out what to do now that we have these things.
Yeah.
We got to figure out what to do now that we're on YouTube. We got
Yeah.
to figure out all that stuff. And it's
And the contrasting example with Gawain is his brother,
mhm.
because you start out thinking Gawain is going to be the villain because he joins the villains. The first villain, well, not the first villains we meet, because we do see the Trollocs on Beltane, so
Mhm.
we do see them. But the first human villains we see, I think, before we ever even see Dark Friends, is the White Cloaks. Gala joins them, and yet it turns out to be not only the best thing for him, but the best thing for them, because
He reforms.
he has such a
Mm.
strong core. He knows who he is and what he wants to do, even if he doesn't always know how.
Well, and he also rises because there were so many people in that cult that desired it.
Yes.
I mean, he does not get where he was without what was the guy's name? Start with a T. Thorin. His officer that helps him. That is basically his squire during the duel.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That's like Trom or
Trom. That's right.
Trom, I
Yeah,
think. Yeah.
yeah. He doesn't get there without those people. Child Buyer, who was the zealot,
Hmm.
he doesn't get there without him. And he doesn't get there without the failures of Bornhold,
Hmm.
because Bornhold would have been next in line.
But he also does. This is why we criticize Sanderson a lot, but I I
That was a
praised a lot.
well-written fight scene. That was
But
one of my favorite moments of the
that
series.
that fight scene was great, but it pairs so well with the human moment later when
Mm.
Morgase is talking to him about the trial they're going to have that she's going to be the judge of for Perrin, and she is trying to guide him without telling him. She's trying to give him that motherly advice, and it's not you need to do this. It's no, look in yourself. You've got a good heart. You've got a good mind. Pair those two together, think it through. What is not don't be reflexive, don't be knee jerk, but what is the best way to live out your values in regards to this thing? Because there is no doubt that under any number of laws, Perrin did something wrong. But how wrong? And what is the best remedy for that? Um,
Oh, I had
he
noticed
couldn't.
that one of our followers, Jason, posted about our conversation with Gawain Gallad, and I
Mhm.
wanted to see if it was relevant for this conversation. That's why I kind of went quiet for a second.
Well, the point being, he would not have been able to make that journey in the same way that Rand, Rand is the big character. He's the main character. Rand talks about I couldn't have done this if I was loose there and again. If I was that guy, I needed to be the sheep herder. That is what let me go down the dark path and come back. Because joining the White Cloaks was going down kind of a dark path.
Hmm.
It was flirting with the looks maxing, but then he goes, no, that's not the right way to do it. I don't know what the right way is, but I'm going to find the right way to do it, and because I know that's not right.
Yeah, well, it was very much the have you read the Bible or were you part of the Spanish Inquisition? You
Mm,
know, it was it was okay, there's these ideals versus what's actually playing out.
yes,
And he was strong enough of a character to say, no, 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 we need to go back to the ideals because that's what brought me here.
yeah, and ultimately those ideals, the fact that he is an ideologue in the good sense, is what lets him become such a pivotal, important person when it matters the most at the end.
Hmm.
When it matters the most because it matters to others, which is what masculinity is all about, which is what you talked about protecting and providing. Ultimately, it's yeah, he's a great swordsman. Yeah, he almost takes out Demandred, but really, the reason he's so important is because he brings what is left of the White Cloaks and the Amedicians together and joins them with the Army of the Light and helps lead people, helps protect people.
Hmm.
That's why it matters.
Well, yeah, because he's the one that saves the Tinkers in the end, which is not a group that the White Cloaks really cared for. And and it was abstract because it was away from the main battle.
Yeah.
And all the White Cloaks wanted to be the going into Shao Ghul and and he was like, no, wait a minute, we've been betrayed and we need to save everybody because that's the right thing to do.
And part of that is going to be nature because this is someone who is clearly, we would say he's probably on the spectrum, especially when you look at the way he's because the girls are all
See,
always
Jordan was ahead of his time. He had
exactly.
he had, had Halima, which was the first transgender character in fiction, and he had Galad, which was the first autistic person in fiction.
But look at the way when he's finally with Bearlane and how awkward he is with her because here's this general, this the Giga Chad, the what the looks maxers are after, what they're trying to achieve. It's Galad, and yet it's not like he's perfect. I mean, the dude doesn't know how to talk to a pretty girl. He's still got some, he still has some flaws that he needs to work out, but it's okay because he knows who he is.
Hmm.
And ultimately, he benefited from that lack of expectation and that lack of pressure that Gawain had. But that isn't enough. You still have to do
Hmm.
on yourself. So
Well,
credit to him.
yeah. And I wonder if Sanderson didn't kind of like miss a little something because I think there could have been more done with the fact that Gallad was Rand's brother. And
Mhm.
that could have created pressure that he could have overcome. My brother is the Dragon Reborn.
Yeah, that was kind of a quick moment of
Mhm.
wait, what? And then he uses it to call out Demandred, but then it that never really goes anywhere. Um, which is which is why I like the idea that instead of having another fake out, I like your idea of actually no, Gallad should have been the one to defeat Demandred.
Hmm. Yeah, well, and also it would have played to the fact that you could have said, okay, so Gallad is this person that's like the perfect looking guy, and it makes more sense now. Oh, all these girls are after Rand. Okay, that makes more sense because he's related to the perfect looking guy, you know.
That's true. That's true too. Um, I don't remember what other thoughts I had on this.
He-Man and standards.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
that was my Looney Tunes example is we if you have a healthy balance, you can look at He-Man or Rambo or whatever we grew up with in the 80s, and you're not going to look like that, but you can go in that direction, and
Mm.
you're not gonna harm yourself to get there. You're not gonna harm yourself if you don't get there, because if you have a healthy grounding, that's not real.
You know what words are on my board in my gym right now? Perfection is a direction, not a destination.
There you
Those are
go.
literally the words that are on my. So this conversation has already happened in with me and clients and stuff. Is no, no, but that's a good thing. That's you want it to be something you strive for, but without being something you know you're ever going to get. And for I guess my closing thoughts would be we talked about the masculine here and we've talked about the feminine and everything, and everybody talks about Barbie and how it led to so many problems with anorexia and bulimia and those things. Well, we also had He-Man. The reality is we're all getting it from all directions. And social media, filters, all of these things has just made it worse.
You know, the filters for sure. The
You can go
on
into AI and say, take 30 pounds off of me in this video.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's only gonna, I mean, the filters were bad enough. Now we've got that. So it's only going to get worse. It's only going to get more fake. And if you don't have, again, it comes down to, do you have a core of this is who I am and this is what I believe? And
And some of us struggle with that.
yeah,
I am always not reinventing, but at the same time, I am always tinkering at the edges. But that core of protect and provide, and you know that will always be there. Protect especially. That's what I do best.
yeah.
And I mean,
I
I was just in a parking lot with a whole bunch of friends, and a car was pulling out, and the girl that was walking next to me was in between me and the car, and I grabbed her and pulled her over. And apparently, every other girl in that group was talking about that for like weeks because it was, oh my God, he did the manly thing. Like, well, yeah, I'm not going to let her get hit by a car. I'm going to put myself in between. That's what we do.
it
That's
it it
women and children
should
first.
it is instinctual, but instinct has to be nurtured.
It has to be
Uh,
trained. Yes. Yeah.
I love nature documentaries, I've said before, and just watch video of a mother predator with her cubs, and the cubs are just sitting there watching.
Hmm.
And they're watching that hunt. They watch the hunt that fails, they watch the hunt that succeeds, and they watch, and then they slowly start to imitate, and then they eventually start to partake, and then eventually they do it themselves. So if you don't have that nurture, then you're not, it is going to be very difficult to figure out on your own how that works. And you see that with that. That is why wild animals that are raised in captivity can't be returned to the wild. They don't know how.
Hmm.
They're not domestic, but they're not wild either.
Yeah, I
And
guess.
I feel like that's where a lot of young men are right now.
Well, I guess I'll end on a harsher note then. Not negative note, but a harsher note. If you're a father, man up.
Mm,
You have people depending on you, and you need to show them that. And that's the biggest problem with this country right now is the fatherless rate. It is the biggest problem because every other problem that is popping up everywhere is because of that, realistically.
because we don't have fathers, we have sperm donors. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, Dr. K, I mean, he's a well-renowned doctor for a reason, and it was simple but brilliant. Of just ask why, and actually listen. That
Hmm.
was the big part of what he said is and actually listen. Is okay. Your child or even a friend or youngster, whatever, is into this thing that seems very weird to you. Don't say that's weird, that's wrong, that's done. Ask them why and listen. And
Hmm.
if you're not sure about it, go, okay, well
Well,
that's interesting, and take some time to think about it. Take some time to look into it, and then formulate a hmm. How do I address this? How do we talk about this? Because there are some problems here,
well,
and remember to focus
and
on positive as well.
remember, you can be an influence to people that aren't your children as well.
Yeah.
Because my son has a friend who is transitioning from male or female to male and wanted advice on how to get bigger arms and shoulders and everything. And you know what? Right now was not the time to say, well, you should be this or that or whatever. It was, okay, here's how you have bigger shoulders and arms. You came to me for advice, knowing what I do for a living. And you're in a phase of your life, and that question doesn't change you. You could be a female and want bigger shoulders and arms, right? That's healthy for you. Okay, so let's go ahead and do it. And they know now they can come to me for anything. And I want to be the influence as opposed to, purple hair college instructor she's going to have in a couple years.
Oh yeah.
Right? So yeah, be a good influence to everyone, including your children. And if you do that, I mean, that's what coaches do. Maybe I'm just drawn to that. That's what coaches do. If you do that, then the best possible result will probably end up on the other side.
Yeah.
If you're just trying to be liked, the best possible result is going to be the only good result is going to be for your own ego, realistically.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, hopefully that helps someone with something. And if you have similar such experiences, let us know.
Yeah, comments, man, comments. Yeah,
So
Jason commented about Galad. It was living in Gawain, or excuse me, Gawain living in Galad's shadow, and he couldn't deal with it. And I think we expanded already on that
yeah.
today. So thank you, Jason, for listening. We love you. Hey, thanks for liking the Real Fitness Facebook
Mhm.
page. So Real Fitness 2011 is the Facebook page. Pimp it out because they're our sponsor because they pay my bills.
All right. Well, we will see y'all next time for whatever the heck is going on.
Who knows?